Oh yeah, sexy biscuits. Nice.
Long was 1975. A YouTuber on the rise. Reviewing games late at night and sometimes friends. But Long Boys Bros 1975.
Hey YouTube, Longboys Post 1975. Buckle up, this is going to be a long one. This is a video, right, that I genuinely thought I had already actually done and put it in my collection, game collection playlist, because I have a game collection playlist. I don't do these videos very often because my collection primarily, and it's in the game collection playlist, and why this channel was started was Mega Drive, and then I dabble in all kinds of other systems, you know, some old, some new, but I'm not one of those people that's going for a full set in anything. My whole purpose of my Mega Drive playlist was I just wanted the full set of games I had as a kid, Japanese games I had as a kid. But someone left a comment on one of my videos where I did a collection video of all my Japanese Saturn titles. Because if you're going to collect for the SEGA Saturn, some of the PAL, some of the Western releases in general can get really bloody expensive. But because the Saturn was really popular, well, not really, not PlayStation popular, but far more popular in Japan than it was over here. In fact, wasn't it more popular than the N64? Don't know, but I'm pretty sure it was. By all means, correct me on that. So yeah, I have a decent collection of Japanese games. It's not huge, but I have a decent collection, and it consists of some of the more difficult to get titles, or just titles that I wanted, but I knew I could get them for absolutely dirt cheap, like Dynamite Daiku, I can't pronounce it. Basically Die Hard Arcade, but the Japanese version, which isn't Die Hard. But you know what I mean. I digress. But before we get into my SEGA Saturn Pal game collection, which is, there are 32 of these bad boys, which is not particularly massive, but like I said, I never in fact even intended to start collecting Saturn games. But I'll give you a little bit of history of me with the SEGA Saturn, which is, my brother Jason had a SEGA Saturn because he had a job at the time, and even though I had a Japanese PlayStation, he didn't want to go the same route of, you know, there was a PlayStation in the house basically, so why get another PlayStation? So he had a SEGA Saturn, and we used to play on it when he used to let us, and standout memories would be Virtua Fighter 2 on it, and SEGA Rally. I mean, SEGA Rally in particular, when he would let us play on it, just absolutely phenomenal. He had Fighting Vipers, and he had a load of games on it. I wouldn't say he probably went above 20 titles, because he eventually sold it when he realised that my PlayStation was chipped, and then there were places, you know, around the area where you could basically buy hooky PlayStation titles, markets basically. I've got a video of that, you know, hooky markets and games you could buy 3 for a tenner and all that good cool beans and stuff. So he thought, why am I keeping this SEGA Saturn when I could get a PlayStation like my brother and then chip it and then just obviously get, you know, tons and tons and tons of copies, allegedly. So that's what he did. But many years later, he did always say to me and my twin brother that he deeply regretted doing that, and he wished he stuck with the SEGA Saturn, because obviously it tanked in this country, but there's no denying that it had a shit ton of solid great software for it, mainly by Sega, and an amazing amount of arcade ports of their, you know, really famous console arcade machines at the time, stuff like that, which I'm not going to mention now because we're going to get into some of them in here. But yeah, bottom line, he regretted it, and I kind of wish he kept it as well, because then it would have been nice to have a PlayStation in the house and a SEGA Saturn in the house, because we did for a bit, and so obviously you had that crossover for the games that would not come out on each other's systems. Now, before everyone goes, oh, the PlayStation was far more powerful, apart from 2D games, obviously everyone knows that, you know, 2D fighting games on the Saturn absolutely ruled and were boss. SEGA Saturn was difficult, and if anyone's going to put a myriad of technical, you know, gunk and shit in the comment section down below. Don't care, because my understanding is that because of the two processors, one was stuck in later when they saw that the PlayStation was going to be an absolute 3D powerhouse, made developing for the Saturn an absolute pain in the balls. But if you could do it and you could utilize the two, you know, processors properly to what each one was individually intended to and work them together, then its 3D shit was just as good as the PlayStation. And yes, it could do transparencies. There are games out there that have proper transparencies, not that kind of meshy shit that was going on, although they all escape my brain right now. But so I guess I had a YouTube channel for around about 4 years when I got a Sega Saturn, and it was in Pink Planet, and they weren't really popular then at all. I mean, retro was just about in, mainly thanks to YouTube and I guess people like me, but they weren't really popular at all, Sega Saturns. I saw one in Cash Converters and it sat in their window for absolutely ages, and I think it was only like 40 quid. And then one day, because I noticed that they had a bunch of Sega Saturn games, and all I really wanted to play was Sega Rally, but I noticed they had a bunch of Sega Saturn games in Pink Planet, in Hartcliffe, which means nothing to you, but I just thought I'd mention it anyway. So I asked if they had one out back, and they did. They had a box one, and it had, I can't remember what games it had with it now, to be fair, but it had 3 games, 2 control pads. Box was a bit banged up, but it still had a box. It's the Saturn box that's in the intro to my YouTube channel, funnily enough, and I think I only paid about 40 quid for that, and then subsequently they went through the roof. But I literally never really set out to collect Saturn games. I just wanted the ones I remember that my brother had, and the arcade conversions and stuff like that. And then obviously, as I mentioned at the start of this video, subsequently I found out that you could just buy Japanese ones because there was so many more copies, because it was so much more successful and popular, for dirt cheap. But I would buy games here and there, sometimes just to make a video, and sometimes, like I said, just to scratch that Sega Saturn itch. So I was quite surprised that I've got 31, you know, PAL titles. Now, the reason I don't do Saturn gameplays anymore, and I generally stay away from buying Saturn games, that's not to say if I come across you know, a bargain in the wild I won't buy it, is I do all my gaming now on gaming monitors. I don't own a CRT anymore, it died. I don't own an HD TV with any form of connection on the back other than an HD connection, because it died. It did actually last for 14 years. It lasted 3 different doctors of the Who. And so I do it all on a gaming monitor, which means obviously I have to have external sound. Don't care, and I have a backup one over there, because when you find something that you like that really, really works for you, and they reduce it to 40 quid, buy a backup one. So anyway, all sort of my history of Sega Saturn out of the way. Let's just plough through these games in no particular order. Daytona, USA. Now, the Sega Saturn cases. What were they thinking? That's something else I should probably talk about. Just cardboard. There. Just cardboard. And then they glued the plastic on, and you will see some horrific horror show, you know, examples of this, but this just, the spine just went, it just blistered, it's shredded, it's split. These things are unbelievably easy to scratch, to dink, to bang up. These cases would just become loose and they would never shut properly. And I mean, in the US, did they have these, or did they, there is another type of case which they did eventually introduce, or did they have like the big, massive, fat jewel cases like they had for the Mega CD, which are even more fragile? Don't know. So if anyone is watching this, which I sincerely doubt, then let me know. But yeah, that was something else I should have mentioned in the Sega Saturn sort of disclaimer at the start of this. These cases were shit. You know it, I know it, Sega must have known it. Was it a cost thing? I don't know. I do like the fact that they were long boxes. I always like that about the Saturn. I like the fact that they were long boxes. Obviously they weren't in Japan, but yeah. Anyway, Daytona USA, we all know what this was. It's an absolutely phenomenal racing arcade game, AM2. And yeah, it redefined racing at the time, graphically phenomenal, link cabinets. I think it's still technically one of the most successful arcade machines, if not the most successful arcade machine of all time. What board was it on? AM2 board? No, that's the people who make it. I'm having a brain fart, but you know what I mean. It was the one after Virtual Racing, but basically this was the game that everyone wanted to come home, and it was teased and it was going to be a launch title for the Sega Saturn, and you knew in the magazines, right, that it wasn't I mean, you knew deep down it wasn't going to be anything like the arcade. I think because Ridge Racer was such an amazing port on the PlayStation, we just assumed that we get something that was equally as close as to the arcade. Although if you put Ridge Racer next to the arcade, actually, it's nowhere near as close as you remember it being. All those magazines that chucked around Arcade Perfect, I call tosh. Anyway, this was a launch title, and it got decent reviews and stuff like that. But as you can see from the back, my God, the frame rate struggles. Isn't it in double digits at some points of the game, and the clipping is, you know, and pop-up is absolutely horrendous. Here's the thing, though. Once you get past all of that, and the magazines did back in the day, I can't remember prices on any of these, but this is super cheap, I do know that. It's still an amazing port of an arcade machine. It had no right to be able to even get close to doing something this good on the Sega Saturn. I'm talking playability wise. It's an amazing port for replicating the arcade gameplay of a machine, like I said, it had no right to be able to do in the first place. And yeah, once you get past the visuals, which are not terrible, I mean, this is a really early Sega Saturn game, it's a fantastic game, and it's a better racing game, and it's more fun to play than Ridge Racer, for sure. Here's a kind of example of what happened to these cases. Can you see that? Anyway, Wipeout. Obviously, it was originally released on the PlayStation, and basically it was, because the PlayStation was aimed, I don't know about the Sega Saturn, what market they were going for, but the PlayStation was aimed at like club generation, wasn't it? Young adults with disposable income rather than children. And it nailed that, you know, PlayStation, cool, adults and shit, club music. People play this when they get high, and they did, because they were in the Ministry of Sound, weren't they? In London, they had actual PlayStations for people to play when they baked off their tits and other substances. But yeah, I love it. I really do love it. I'm not as into it as other people do, say it's basically the best future racing game ever made. Nope, that still would be the F-Zero series. But this is inferior to the PlayStation, but not massively. And obviously it does have the weird transparencies that the Saturn, we all remember from the Saturn. These are in really good nick, actually, inside. Forgot about how many of these had the manuals. A little bit of glare for you there to keep you on your toes. But yeah, it plays exactly the same as the PlayStation. And it's one of those games which I just saw it, and I think it was like a £5 or something. I don't know what Saturn games have gone up like price-wise now. But I just saw it and thought, I got to have a bit of that in my life. Now, Sega Touring Car Championship. I got this. I didn't know any of the reviews. This is the decent cases. Look. But they're impossible to get into. But yeah, Sega Touring Car. I'm assuming this is an arcade port, but I bought it because I just thought, you know, look on the back, got 2-player split screen and shit like that. How good, you know, Sega Rally is and stuff like that. And to be fair, you know, Daytona and USA, this has got to be amazing. This is tolerable at best to pants most of the time, but I think this was another example of one that I saw super cheap. If anyone disagrees with my opinions on how good these games are, don't care. It's called subjectivity, which apparently is a word that the internet doesn't recognise. So later on then, obviously, Sega jumped over to these much better cases. Is this complete? Jesus, can't get into it. Not even going to try, hurts my fingers. Manx TT Superbike. This is a banger, this is absolutely phenomenal. My brother Jason did actually have this. This is a game that I do remember sinking a massive amount of time into. Is it as good as Sega Rally? No, but it's a bike racing game. It's a bit squiffy on a control pad. If you've got the Nights into Dreams analog stick, which I haven't, but my brother Jason did back in the day, or the steering wheel, or yoke if you will, then it's absolutely fantastic on that. But it's another example of an arcade machine that had no right to be anywhere near as good as it is on the Sega Saturn. And I sank a load of my life into this back then, and when I got my Saturn again and had a TV I could play on it. I have two Saturns for the record, a Model 1 and a Model 2, because they got different buttons, shapes and stuff like that. Not sure why they changed it. Someone could tell me probably, but yeah, this is an absolute banger. Speaking of absolute bangers, Das Bronx, which is this one of the last Sega Saturn games? This is an absolute looker. I have a gameplay of this. I have a gameplay of all the ones I've done so far. I should probably make a Sega Saturn playlist. In fact, I might make a Sega Saturn playlist and bang them all into the Saturn playlist. But yeah, this is Sega's version of Soul Blade, basically, with a kind of, you know, edgy 90s dude, and yeah, obviously a port of their arcade machine. But this is in the high-res mode, isn't it, I believe, and it looks absolutely fantastic. and I got into it. I think there's a knack, to be fair. Look, it's got the poster advertising other games. I think there's a knack to get into it. Most of these, if I did not buy them in Pink Planets, I think I bought them off eBay before I got hacked and shit like that. What do we have here? I don't recall getting this in a protective case, but yeah, hey, who remembers Loaded with music by Pop Will Eat Itself? Not as good visually as the PlayStation one. Again, there's no reason for these not to be as good visually as the PlayStation one. It just came down to, I guess, deadlines and how competent the people were, or used to the hardware the people were who were making the games. But yeah, this was kind of another one of those when it first came out on the PlayStation, edgy 90s, you know, I'm not for kids, top down 3D, kill everything in sight, tons of blood game. That's the best descriptive term you'll ever hear on this. And it's alright, it's alright. I had it on the PlayStation myself back in the day, and I do remember thinking it was a bit more style over substance once you played it for a couple of hours. But it did alright. There's a sequel which is shite. Not sure why I have this. Again, it must have been because I came across it dirt cheap. Ultimate Mortal Kombat. Again, you can see they're stacking these on each other, which to be fair is what I do, so I should probably not do that. Ruins these cases. Is this complete? No. But it's not fucked on the spine. Ooh! Yes it is. Did you hear that noise? These things, I mean obviously the glue's dried out now and shit like that. And the thing that holds the disc is split. I might get some bubble wrap and just put a sheet of it in every one of these that's got issues, and it still stays shut. But yeah, everyone goes on about this being an absolutely amazing version of Mortal Kombat, and do you know what? It probably is. But me and Mortal Kombat, I never got on with it. I understand and appreciate its importance in the history of arcade fighters, and the fact that it did something different from Street Fighter, and there were two fighting series, franchises, if you will, that went off in polar opposites. They both retained a massive, you know, core fan base while playing completely and utterly different. And I did always like the digitized graphics and stuff like that. But me and Mortal Kombat, we're not good bedfellows. But apparently this is a really good version. No Scooby, what I paid for it. This, I think I literally saw it in a Pink Planet for a couple of quid and thought, why not? And yeah, Battle Arena Toshinden remix. Toshinden was a Japanese title that cost me 75 quid back in the day. When I first got my Japanese PlayStation, and yeah, it wowed us at the time, me playing it around my mate's house, and we were having massive tournaments on it, despite the fact that we'd come off massive tournaments on Super Street Fighter 2. So we should have been aware of how limited and shit it was as a fighter, definitely style over substance, because it was all about them new 3D graphics, but it was a terrible fighter, and this is a terrible version. And I think the only real sort of upgrade is a different, like, kind of bio screens and shit like that with a kind of manga-esque artwork, but I think I probably wouldn't have paid any more than 2 quid for this, so that's why I picked it up. There are a bunch of games in this list that are simply because they were cheap, and this would have been one as well. My god, since I'm going through these and I haven't played my Saturn in ages, you can really see how these cases just took a hammering. Seriously, Sega, I still want answers on it. Destruction Derby, what's not to like about this? I had it on my PlayStation, came on the demo disc. I didn't have the demo disc because I had a Japanese machine. But, yeah, fantastic fun. Not competent racer in the sense that it's anything comparable to Ridge Racer, but it was the fact that your cars could get beaten up and rammed to shit and bits of them would fall off. And the Rose Bowl was just, that was so much fun. But yeah, not as good as the PlayStation, but plays exactly the same, just visually is a bit of a pop. Again, I think that was a couple of quid. If any of these are worth a load of money, tell me. I'm not going to sell them, but it'd be interesting to see how their prices have inflated. This was one I think I mentioned that my brother had, which I absolutely loved. It's difference between it was more 90s too than Virtua Fighter and stuff like that, but it was all about the fact that you had armour which you could break, and as it took more damage and fell off and shit like that, then obviously you would take more damage, but it has the same sort of controls as Virtua Fighter. This isn't in high res, but it has light sourcing, doesn't it? Because you either had one or the other. But bought this simply because, again, I'm pretty sure this was cheap, but I had memories of playing it with my brother Jason and my twin back in the day, and thought, I'm having a bit of that in my life. Definitely having a bit of life in that. Yeah, I said that the wrong way. Oh look, complete. Then we have Duke Nukem 3D, which I had to give a go because I'm a massive fan of Duke Nukem. I have a massive soft spot for Duke Nukem. Now, unlike the PlayStation version, am I right in thinking, so correct me if I'm wrong, that this uses the Exhumed engine, which is Power Slave in North America. Exhumed. Better name, seriously. But yeah, so, and it's a really, really good, decent port. And the fact that they use that game engine, they also used that game engine for Quake, didn't they? Which I don't have, which is a shame because I absolutely love and adore Quake and it never came out on the PlayStation. But yeah, this is a really, really good port of Duke Nukem. Again, I didn't pay much for it. Can't get into it. Do these things, while they're not as fragile as the paper ones, do they just age really badly and seize up? Independence Day, the game, couple of quid pick up in a pink planet, which is, how do you not make a good game out of this movie? I think I had this as a rental from when it was still Ritz Video, which got bought over by Blockbuster, and on the PlayStation, and was incredibly disappointed. And for some reason I bought this. In fact, I bought this from Mount Games, is that their name, in Weston-super-Mare, and it was super cheap, and I just bought it because I wanted to see if it was as shit as I remember. And it is as shit as I remember, and I can't get into this. And do you know what? Don't care, because it's shit, even if I could play it. Sonic R, never got a proper Sonic game. What was that about, Sega? Oh, here you go. I'm pretty sure I didn't buy that for 19 quid, but once upon a time it was in cashies for 19 quid. Is Sonic R really that desired a game? It looks alright, but I mean, seriously, you made a racing game out of Sonic where everyone's on foot. Why didn't you just make a 3D Sonic game? I mean, obviously we know the reason, but yeah, so shit, basically. Flawed, bad racer. If you disagree, don't care. Worms. Forgot I had this. I'm obsessed now with... Now, obviously this was on the Mega Drive. I don't know if it was on the SNES, but it was on the Amiga and stuff like that. This was around everywhere probably before it came out on this. Everyone knows what Worms is. An absolute seminal strategy warfare game, but fun with an excellent, you know, design, a great sense of humour. And I'm pretty sure Saturn, whether we played it with my brother or my brother took it around people's houses, or me and my Andy rented a Saturn and then this, but I'm pretty sure the Saturn version was our go-to version of Worms. And this is an absolutely fantastic game. Again, I have no idea what this is worth, but see, not only are all these ones screwed on the spine, but the little teeth that hold the CD in are all fucked as well. Seriously, Sega, what were you thinking? I still want an answer all these years later. Worms, absolute banger. So do you know what? I got some decent titles there. I got some fun titles. Exhumed. Because we were lacking. My brother had this, he completed it. I watched him complete it and was blown away by this game. There was a complete lack of first-person shooters, wasn't there, on the Saturn? And then this came along. I don't know what this goes for. Again, it's in the decent case. How do you open these motherfuckers? Look! Jesus! Yeah, that's an absolute banger. Do you know what's not an absolute banger? Although well, I don't know what to make of the case. Road and Track, EA's The Need for Speed. I've got 3DO. I can't use that because I don't have a TV with an RGB on it, which is a shame because I found my joypad, which was MIA for years, and I found my copy of Demolition Man. I really want to play it, but this came out on the 3DO and it was absolutely fantastic. The frame rate wasn't great, but we'd never seen a driving game like that. And I like the fact that you could car farm, which is you just ram cars onto their side and build walls with them and stuff like that. And you had that annoying bloke who really did make you want to beat him. And it was all, you know, spit and polish, but there was a decent racer in there. And then it came out on the PlayStation, and then it came out on the Saturn, and it had a higher frame rate. 'Twas not the same game, though. It was not the same game, because it wasn't Need for Speed. You were racing through traffic on the 3DO against a main bad guy. I'll have to go back and watch my gameplay and see, because I have a gameplay of this as well. But whether this on the PlayStation and the SEGA Saturn was a track racer, which had no reason to exist because of the Ridge Racers and the Daytonas of the time. Obviously, that's on two different systems, you know what I mean. So why didn't they just port the 3DO version? Don't know, because this, you got hardware that could do better visuals, or at least deliver a better frame rate, and you gave us a worse game than the 3DO version. But look at the case. It's like a Mega Drive case. on steroids. Look at that. In case you're wondering who made it. But nothing to hold the manual in, which is why it's all beaten to tits. But at least the manual's in there, and what a book it is. It's a beast. And the case can hold 2 discs. There's some weight to that. So yeah, that had potential to be absolutely amazing. And it was not. Then there was this, Nights into Dreams. I do remember watching my brother play this. Look, that one opened really easily, and there's a receipt in here. What did I pay for this? Can't read it because it's faded to tits, but it is cash converters. That doesn't necessarily mean I paid for it. If it is cash converters, there's a price on the back. I wouldn't pay that for it, 19 quid, so I'm assuming this is I picked it up somewhere else. But so this was Team Sonic, so rather than make a Sonic game, they made this, and it was weird. It was generally regarded by all the magazines to be absolutely fantastic, visually stunning. You could dick around with the clock in it, couldn't you, and change it and stuff like that. But yeah, visually stunning, and like the music's absolutely amazing. 2.5D platformer float. I can't explain it. It's a very tranquil experience, nice place to be when you play it. But I do remember back in the day, and my brother had it, and he had the 3D pad, which was a precursor to the Dreamcast pad. But yeah, I do remember back in the day thinking, wow, you made a lot of effort in this. Should have just made us a Sonic game. And then obviously you've got to have the original Virtua Fighter. I do have Remix, but it's in my Japanese collection. Look, screwed, spine screwed, teeth on the disc screwed. Fucking hell, Sega, really? Launch title. Didn't it sell 1-to-1 with the console in Japan? Absolutely phenomenal, bang on port of the arcade, but it's nowhere near as arcade perfect as you remember it being because of glitching in the background and stuff like that. But it's a decent launch title, and it could definitely show you that this machine was more than capable of, you know, delivering 3D graphics. And obviously this was the most technically advanced, you know, and realised fighter at the time when this came out. So yeah, you got to have that. And I know that's like practically pennies. Is it practically pennies anymore? Don't know. And by that I don't mean a girl called Penny. But Alien Trilogy. This was one that I got, here you go, in, I don't know where I got it. It wouldn't be much because obviously I had this on launch on the PlayStation and absolutely loved Alien Trilogy. And I think it was a question of don't meet your heroes, because I always wondered how they ever have lived and wanted to see how it played on SEGA Saturn. And basically plays exactly the same as the PlayStation version. However, the problem is not doing the transparencies properly in this really hurts it, and his visuals are kind of a bit happy compared to the PlayStation, but they're not night and day, but you know what I mean if you played it. But it's a solid, fantastic game, absolutely fantastic game. I've completed that on the PlayStation loads of times. Someone at work gave me this, someone at a previous job, because he used to be eBay stuff. Look, see, fucking, oh, sorry, I gotta get past these shit cases. And yeah, it's the sequel to the game that was on the Mega CD, which my brother also had when he had his Mega CD, and I loved it on the Mega CD. It was a true show off the hardware for then. But yeah, Thunderhawk, Firestorm Thunderhawk 2. But apparently this is worth absolutely nothing. But it's a really fun arcadey helicopter game. And it's, look at the condition of that. I've got to be careful when you handle these, because obviously the glue's gone south. Be really careful not to let them open too quickly, because if the spine's not fucked, it will be, and that'll be on you. Daytona Championship Circuit Edition. They fixed the draw distance, they fixed the graphics of the original Daytona, and the thing with it is, but it no longer plays like Daytona Arcade. So it's, yeah, it looks really, I was really disappointed when I got this. I never played it as a kid, obviously I got it as an adult when I got my Saturn, you know, the one obviously I'm talking about in this video. But I was really disappointed because yeah, it looks absolutely fantastic and there's loads of options and cars and shit like that, but it doesn't play like Daytona Arcade. So what's the point? What's the point of fixing all of Daytona Arcade's, the arcade conversions problems, and then changing the controls? Or maybe it's just me and you all think it's absolutely fantastic, but yeah, I just thought it was shit. Wing arms. This is a port of an arcade machine. Is it an AM2? Model 2 board? That's the word I was looking for at the start. Model 2 board arcade machine. Don't know. It's alright. It's fun. I don't think I've played it a massive amount. It's another one of those ones which was kind of considered to be one of those arcade games that you had to play back in the day, and then when it got ported, maybe I'm thinking of a different arcade machine. Don't know, so by all means correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, it's fun, it's decent enough. This is basically my favourite game on the Sega Saturn. This is an absolute banger. This is an incredible arcade port, and this made all us PlayStation kids back in the day kind of shut up for a bit and just go, yeah, really wish I had that. That looks absolutely amazing. So yeah, I used to sink so much time into this. My brother used to, we all used to, trying to beat each other's ghost cars. This is absolutely... Cajones Dolores gave this to me, by the way. Just thought I'd let you know. But yeah, and this is like a fiver. Even now, this is like a fiver. If you own a Sega Saturn and you don't own... Case is marked. Sega Rally, then I don't know what to say. Check yourself into rehab or something. There's something clearly wrong with you. Absolute banger. As is this. Looks absolutely fantastic. High res, so there's no light shading. It's not polygonal backgrounds because it was never going to do the arcade. But when you look at the character models, it looks amazing. It looks phenomenal. My problem with this game is I'm shit at Virtua Fighter. It's an unbelievably complex and in-depth fighting game with only 3 buttons. And I just can't do it. I'm shit at it. Put me on Tekken, I love it. But this, I'm shit at it, but I still love it. And this is like a fiver as well, maybe even less. Gotta get a bit of Virtua Fighter 2 in your life. This was... When did this come out? Was it PlayStation first and then Sega Saturn second, or was it Sega Saturn first and then PlayStation, but then Sega Saturn didn't get Resident Evil 2? Don't know. Got something going on up there in my head. Maybe there's a Mandela effect thing going on. Don't know. But this is a bang on perfect port of, or a perfect version I should say, of Resident Evil, which is my least favourite Resident Evil game, but it's still worth a go, and it still shits me up, and I can still appreciate its importance in the survival horror genre. I just always preferred the second one because it's a superior game. But I do remember my mate Sam, these fucking cases. This is the new case, but even this has got issues. This is alright. Carpets have a future. Yeah, it won't sit in there. I bought this off someone at my previous job. Her son, she found all her son's Saturn games in the attic, and I bought a whole chunk of them. But yeah, I do remember watching my mate Sam and helping him with some of the puzzles play it on the PlayStation, so I have seen the entire game from start to finish. Look at this. This is banged up. And yeah, like I said, you probably love it. I'm just a Resident Evil 2 guy. UEFA Euro 96, England official licensed product. This is Actua Soccer 2, which was Gremlin Graphics football franchise, and they renamed it on the Saturn to this. I'm pretty sure there was no PlayStation version of Euro 96, and it was obviously to tie in with the tournament Euro 96 that was being hosted by us in England in 96, and it was the first time we were decent in years. What a tournament. I remember that tournament, absolutely loved it. So this is technically the first football game that had polygonal characters, because FIFA was FIFA, but the characters still sprites for like ages. But yeah, this is absolutely pre-owned. You're not fucking kidding. Yeah, this is beaten to shit. But yeah, I do remember my brother had this, and apparently I don't anymore. I wonder, I got a horrible feeling that this might actually be in one of my Saturns. Well, I'll have to check that out. But yeah, because he didn't have any football games and stuff like that. Actually he did, it's the next one. He bought this, and obviously we were all into Euro 96 because we're patriotic. You know, back then when you were allowed to, but you can't be patriotic anymore because we've got a socialist government, so knock that shit on the head. Sega Worldwide Soccer. Is this an arcade port? Don't know. This was one that actually came with my Saturn that I got in Pink Planet. This case is absolutely fucking shagged as well. This is a very, very, very arcadey. God, these cases! I'll shut up about that in a minute. Very arcadey football game, because I don't recognise the word soccer, because, you know, I'm English. But it's tons and tons and tons of fun. Absolutely. This is like a couple of quid. Fuck you, Sega. Yeah, I definitely recommend this if you come across it for a couple of quid. Now, this, I think I also bought, my god, it's the EA cases, from that Mount, whatever it is, Games in Western Supermare. You know the one I mean if you've been to Western Supermare. I can't remember the name of the store properly, and it was simply because this was my favourite version of FIFA on the PlayStation. And so another example of I wanted to see how the other half lived, so I bought it on the SEGA Saturn, and I can't believe for a second it was more than 10. Look how bland the back of the fucking case is. It looks like this is a knockoff. But yeah, but look at the EA cases, and it plays exactly the same as the PlayStation version, so therefore I like it. Interesting about this one, the second disc would go there and not underneath there, and once again, just in case you forgot, Electronic Arts. These, I don't like these. I mean, I'll take these over the paper ones, but I don't like them because they're compensating for something. Look at them, it thinks it's a fucking VHS tape. I mean, I like VHS tapes, but not for my SEGA Saturn games. This I saw in a Cash Generators in St George, and I think I paid £20 for it about 10 years ago, which I'm pretty sure is a good price. Now, when I show you what it is, you'll know exactly why I bought it. Sega Ages Volume 1. These were budget games in Japan, weren't they? And they're over here. I don't even know there is a Volume 2, but over here, they just banged them all on one disc, didn't they? And yeah, safe to say you know why I bought this, because SEGA Saturn 2D powerhouse, and it could do sprite scalers like you wouldn't believe. So After Burner 2, Space Outrun, basically all arcade perfect, although I believe this has a 60Hz mode. Shame it's in the original shit case, but this one's in good nick. I was all over this. I got gameplays of all of these, but yeah, hell yeah, get a bit of this in your life. Go see Matron, get a bit of tuck. Points for the quote. Yeah. This is basically a must-have, a must-own on the system. Now, this definitely came with it. Remember that? Virtua Cop. Obviously, my brother had this and he had the second one and he had the gun, and yeah, and then for a bit of crossover, I had the gun that came with Die Hard trilogy on the PlayStation, and it had 2 leads and you could plug it into a Sega Saturn as well, so we used to dual wield on Virtua Cop. But this is this is Virtua Cop 2. Have a gameplay of this. This is an absolutely phenomenal port, and again it's super cheap, but yeah, what an absolute banger. Another example, because it was super cheap. Even though I had it on the PlayStation, I loved it on the PlayStation. You could argue that it was 3 budget games banged onto one disc, but because it was 3 games each for one of the movies, we all loved it because of that. And also, Die Hard with a Vengeance on here is a precursor to an open world city racing game. That got away from me, but you know what I mean. But yeah, Die Hard trilogy does exactly what it says on the tin. First game, you know, 3D shooter. Second game thinks it's Virtua Cop. Third game thinks it's an open world racer. But it's not aged particularly well. Next one, Sonic Jam. Don't know where I got this from. Decent case, really good nick. Can't get into it. There's probably a knack. It's got the original Sega sticker on the side. So this is a compilation of all the Sega games, as you can see. But the reason I bought this was basically the only way you got to experience a true 3D Sonic game of sorts, where that game HUD, I am aware every time I do that I fuck up the light in this video, but what you're going to do, it's my channel, I never said I do some production, nor do I care. Yeah, the gaming HUD selection, information, like, you know, there was a world where it was 3D and you could explore a little bit and there were rings to collect, but there were things there. Was it the museum screen? Can't remember, I've got a gameplay of it, and you will find out information and facts and stuff like that on Sonic, but it could have done a decent open world, well, not open world, but you know what I mean, 3D Sonic game. And I think that's what most people remember about this, and most people bought it to try that. I know I did all those years later. But yeah, Sonic Jam. I think that goes for a bit of money now. And also, there we go, apparently I've got 2 copies of Manx TT. This was just a little bit of fun because, as I said at the start of this video, someone said, you've done your Sega, your Japanese Sega Saturn games, why didn't you do your PAL releases? Don't know. So now I've done it. So I'll put it in that playlist. So if you want to see any of my game collection videos, they're in that playlist. But yeah, I just thought I'd do this because I do like doing these. They are a bit of fun. They're just a little bit to talk about vlog, have some memories come to the surface, and just show what games I have for certain systems. Anyways, always I love to know what you think of the Sega Saturn, what games you have, and what you think of what I've got, and what you think of those fucking cases. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you later.